Hello, Chag Sameach to everybody. We are preparing for Shavuot. Shavuot is Chag Matan Torah. It is the day of the giving of the Torah. And when Israel received the Torah, there was something really, really dramatic that happened. The Torah hints to it in 3 words, but those 3 words are crucial and give us probably a vital message, one of the most vital messages about why Chag Shavuot is one of the Shalosh Regalim, one of the 3 main holidays in Judaism, and why it's so important to celebrate year in, year out. Specifically, why do we dedicate the night of Shavuot to Leil Tikkun Shavuot, to learning Torah? So it says as follows, Va'ityatzvu betachtit hahar. And they gathered and they stood in the nethers of the mountains, underneath the mountain. It's a very, very strange verse. And the Talmud, quoting the Midrash, goes into explaining exactly what happened during that scenario. So Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, was actually one of the smaller mountains in the region. However, it was a mountain or a hill. Nonetheless, anybody who's been to Israel and climbed up a hill called a har, it's mountainous in the area because the surrounding area is usually flat. And even if you ascend a small hill, not necessarily a grand mountain like Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro, but even a small hill, you can see tens of kilometers around you and it has strategic advantage. Therefore, it's called a har. And imagine that the mountain was completely lifted in the air, and all of Israel were underneath the mountain. And so that's the image that Rav Avdimi Bar Chama Bar Chasa describes to us, quoted in the Talmud. And he says as follows, Melamed shekafa hakadosh baruch hu alehem et ahar kegigit. This teaches us that Hashem essentially coerced Israel with the mountain, hovering it over their heads like a pail, like a bucket. I remember when I was a little kid and we used to play around in the backyard, and sometimes there was a flower pot, and usually under the flower pot there was interesting things hiding underneath the flower pot. So one of the times I lifted up the flower pot, and underneath were thousands and thousands of ants. Imagine all these ants, scurrying around. And there's this flower pot on top, and you have the power in that moment to chas v'shalom squash the ants, or to place it down nicely and to let them continue crawling around. Not that Israel is analogous to ants, but you can imagine the imagery of a mountain hovering over their heads. And Hashem said as follows, Ve'amar lahem, continuing the Midrash, Hashem told him, Im atem mekablim Torah, if you accept the Torah, mutav, great. Ve'im lav, and if not, sham tehek kvuratchem, that will be your grave. There are 2 main questions I'd like to address, which are very puzzling with this Midrash. One, why did Hashem coerce Israel into accepting the Torah, especially if Israel is famous for saying the words Na'aseh v'nishma, we shall do and we shall learn, accepting the Torah fully in Parashat Mishpatim? So why does he have to coerce them when we already accepted it? That's one question. Second question is a very, almost a nuance, a grammatical nuance, but a very important one. Why does it say in the Midrash, Sham tehek kvuratchem, there will be your grave, and it doesn't say, Kan tehek kvuratchem, here will be your grave? After all, in the image that we described, there's a mountain hovering over their heads, and if it squashes them, their grave will be right then and there under the mountain. Why does it say there, referring to a different location altogether? It's very puzzling. So to answer the first question, there's a great quote, a great concept from one of the great teachers of our time, Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, Zichrono Livracha. And he writes a book, The Man of Faith, Ish HaEmunah. And he describes there's 2 different types of people. There's the halachic person halachic man, there's the covenantal man. There's a person who is accepting the Torah as a covenant. And he says as follows, that lefi anireh, according to what I see and what I understand, that Hashem actually wants from the kihila, from the community, shtei hitchayvuyot, two obligations, two sets of obligations from Israel to Hashem. One is in general to accept the will of Hashem, Ratzon Hashem. And the second is the acceptance of every single law. And he says the first one, to accept the will of God, that's what Israel said, Na'aseh v'nishmatu. When Israel said, we will do, and only afterwards we will understand, it's referring to Ratzon Hashem. Hashem, if you want us to do things in the Torah, if you want us for our will to be your will, we fully accept that 100%. We don't need to be coerced into that. When it comes to the mitzvot, though, that's what Hashem coerced them into doing without even asking them, without even giving them the opportunity to accept it or reject it. Because it talks about the covenantal man, the brit, the covenant that binds us, the covenant of Sinai, that binds us to the Torah, that binds us to Hashem. And that is something that a person who feels the covenantal selves, they have to essentially bow their will to God's will. You're not free to accept or reject it. It is something that is innate, that essentially makes man have that obligation to Hashem. And to take that point further, and to answer the second question of why it says Sham teheh kvuratchem, there will be your grave, versus here will be your grave, there's a wonderful insight by the Maharal Prague, Rav Levi from Prague, who wrote tremendous works, especially on the Agadotot, on the allegories, the stories, and the midrashim of the Talmud. And he says as follows, what's the point of the coercion, and why does it say there will be your grave? There actually refers to a time in the future. There does not refer to a physical location. Or else it would have said, here will be your grave. That the mountain's hovering over their head, and if chas v'shalom, you don't accept my Torah, your grave will be right here and now. But he says that's not what the Torah is saying. The Torah is saying that Hashem was making a statement. Hashem was not making a threat. He was never intending to end the lives of Israel on that spot. After all, just 7 weeks before, he had taken them out of Egypt, spent an entire year with the 10 Makot, Eser Makot, and this is Israel's destiny, to receive the Torah. He had no intention of killing them on the spot. However, he was making a very important statement. And the statement was, the Torah is essential to the world. And if you don't accept the Torah, in the future will be your kvuratchem, will be the end of you. Essentially, lehodia ma'alat Torah she'i efshar mibalada, in order to tell us the attribute of the Torah, the importance and significance of the Torah, that it is essential and the world cannot exist without it. We spent several weeks now in COVID-19 discussing what is an essential service and what is not. And the Maharal says the most essential thing to the world is Torah. And the Midrash, in another place, takes it a step further. It says, Vayi'erev vayivoker yom hashishi, every single day of creation. It says there was night and there was day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. But it just says yom chamishi, meaning in general, day 5, not the 5th day. However, when it comes to yom hashishi, it doesn't say day 6, yom shishi. It uses the prefix of hey, ha, which means the, referring to the 6th day. And Rabbi Yossi on the spot, in the Talmud, Masechet Shabbat, asked, why is it what 6th are they referring to? And he says it's referring to the 6th of Sivan, the 6th day of Sivan, which is the date of Shavuot, which is very interestingly not mentioned in the Torah at all. It's mentioned as the 50th day from Pesach, but the 6th of Sivan is the date of receiving the Torah, and therefore the creation of the world essentially is on hold, is going to exist on condition that Israel receive the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. So for 2,000 years the world was pending. And why was the Torah so essential to the world that the Maharal says it couldn't be up to Israel's will? It had to be that they were coerced into it. They were forced into accepting the Torah because it couldn't be dependent on their will. Why was the world pending until Israel received the Torah? So the Midrash teaches us that Hashem, when he created the world, he beat be'oraita uvara alma. He looked into the Torah and he created the world. The Torah is the blueprint of the world. It's also the spirituality that sustains the world. When we learn Torah, it is not merely learning the spiritual manual of how to perform the mitzvot. And as Rav Soloveitchik suggests, there is this binding aspect of being part and parcel of Hashem's will, of being covenantal man, if you will, covenantal people that we are, that have that essential connection to Hashem. It is not just, the Torah is not just about the evolution of how the nation of Israel was created, ultimately settling in the land of Israel and building the Beit HaMikdash. Learning Torah is our direct connection to God, to the spiritual energy that sustains the world. And it may be a difficult concept to understand, but maybe let's look at it from a micro perspective. Think of a loved one. Think of somebody you know who is dear to you, who passed away. What do we remember? Do we remember their physical qualities, physique, how they vacationed, how much money they had? Or do we remember their qualities, the values that they embodied and taught, the legacy that they left in this world? This spiritual side, their neshama, not their body. When a neshama leaves the body no longer is living in this world. Similarly, the Torah is the neshama of the world, and the Jewish people are tasked with the responsibility and the honor of sustaining Torah in the world. That is why Shavuot is one of the most foundational holidays in the Jewish calendar. Pesach was important. It took us out of Egypt. But Shavuot is the goal of the Exodus. And the ultimate goal is for Israel to leave Egypt, accept the Torah, and go into the land of Israel, which is why on Shavuot we bring the fruit, the first fruit of the land, to the Kohanim, the priest, where the Beit HaMikdash is, making it harmonious, about taking the physical redemption of Pesach, creating a spiritual component that binds it together, Shavuot, bringing it back into creating a nation around the land of Israel, ultimately culminating with the spiritual center, epicenter of the world in the Beit HaMikdash. And so being coerced is not necessarily against Israel's will. It's a statement. The Torah is essential to the world's existence and is not dependent on Israel if they choose the Torah or not. It is an essential component to sustaining the world. And on Shavuot, the anniversary of receiving Torah at Har Sinai, we reaffirm this claim by spending all night learning Torah, even if it's part of the night. It doesn't matter what we learn, just the act of learning itself, their spiritual connection, and our work, our avodah, on Shavuot. Chag Sameach.